Hello, Rental Scale viewers. Welcome to this session. We are welcoming now Antonio Bortolotti. You may know him as the host of the amazing Vacation Rental World Summit. It's a great conference taking place every year in Europe. It's going to be the 7th edition this year. So it's a big event where a lot of vacation rental owners, property managers, and big influencers industry go to. Antonio is also very famous for being one of the friendliest person in the industry. And also, I'm excited to have him here talk today because he's sitting right now in Italy. And what I would love to hear from him, and we're going to hear this, is basically what the situation is like and advice on what to do with your business. So now joining me from Italy is Antonio. Antonio, how are you?
Hey, Thibaut. Hi, nice to be here. And thank you for inviting me to this, which is a great opportunity you are giving everyone to stay focused, stay informed, and, get through this hard moment as best as we can. How am I? I'm doing well. Let's say, well, for what we can say at this time, at this moment, I'm doing well. I'm staying at home right now, like everyone else, behaving as a responsible citizen and trying to understand better what's going on here and have a longer term vision to see what can we do to go through this and overcome it, and then still be in good shape afterwards.
The question I have for you is, how is it in Italy? Because what is remarkable is how calm you are, how it is. But how is it outside for people? We follow the news. We kind of see what from the outside what it's like. But when you live the situation right now, what is it maybe for you, for your friends, or also for local property managers?
Well, first and foremost, I live in Lombardy. So for anyone following the situation in Italy, this is the epicenter of the pandemic and of the epidemic in Italy. And therefore it can be quite scary in some ways. I live 200 kilometers away from Bergamo and Brescia, the two cities with the biggest numbers of deaths. It was just yesterday that we crossed 600 people died in a day, 627 or something like that. And the situation is quite scary for everyone. In my area where I am at the moment, where I live here, I'm quite glad to say that here it looks pretty quiet. And in fact, in Lombardy, this is the area with the least number of cases. I live right on Lake Maggiore, on the lake. So northwest, let's say, near the border with Switzerland. And therefore the situation here is much calmer. But the overall situation in the area is, I think, the same as it is in many countries in the world now, to different degrees. Everything is basically paralyzed. Everything is frozen still. Our lives are frozen. We're living in a sort of limbo, trying to figure out what's going to happen next without having a clue of how impactful really is this going to be on us, how long it's going to last and take before we get back to some sort of normality. Also because I think life will be different. What we define as normality will be different after this is hopefully over. And so the situation here so far is for me personally, is calm. I consider myself quite privileged because I live in a nice place. I have a beautiful garden with a view of the lake. So I always feel very much for the majority of people, like my fellow peers who are living in the cities like Milan or all other cities where you live in an apartment and you have not much space, so you're really confined as in jail. In my case, I consider myself quite privileged because I'm trying to make the most of the space, the time I have, and so I'm happy I can't complain.
And it's also a question I had for you, which was 2 weeks ago. I think it was a Sunday. I sent you. We talked on WhatsApp, I think, right? And I think it was already getting very big in Italy. And I know you were trying to be. I don't know whether there was confinement yet, but you were trying to be very cautious, and you were remarkably calm. I know I've seen you and your wife Christina host this huge 500 people event every year, basically the two of you. So I know you were able to do big things, just with this very small team. But what's the secret? If anyone, in different parts of the world, depending where we are, some people are confined. I'm confined at home as well. Some people may not be in the US, for example, or not yet. It's coming. But throughout this, again, what can some few tips, simple tips for people to say that's how you can remain calm? What should they be doing?
Well, my recipe is first and foremost reading a lot. I start from the assumption that when you don't know, when you're ignorant because you're kept ignorant, it's when you are scared, when you are the most vulnerable, and therefore you can freak out and you can make the wrong decisions. So what I've started doing from the very beginning was basically collect as much information as possible, read. I spent hours a day, every day, reading everything, of course, from fake news to maybe not so much fake news, and lots of studies, lots of theories, trying to put them together using my gut feeling, using common sense, and trying to draw a line or a consistent or coherent line that makes sense to me without being scared. Trying to be very realistic because the scenarios are multiple. Many scenarios are not nice at all. We don't live in a Pollyannish world, so we have to be aware of the fact that this is real, this is happening, this is truly happening. So it's really a test, one of these testing grounds where you really have to stop BS, stop wasting time following things that don't matter, and be focused on what really matters. So reading first is what I've done. Putting together the information is the second thing I put, to get a clear idea of where we were going, what was happening, and how this was going to possibly evolve with the different things that may have occurred. And based on that, then think, how would I react? That's what I've done. Basically, again, I used lots of common sense. And what I've seen spreading on the news was nothing more than the simple reality of what I saw in my mind. What I depicted is what actually happened afterwards and what is happening now. So I am remaining calm, and I am calm also because, once again, I consider myself very lucky that I built over the years a situation, a personal situation that took into account the possibility of something, not like this because no one could think about it, but something that if one day it happens, how long can I survive? what can I do? So I sort of like prepared for something like that. And today I feel a little better than many other people because I keep calm and I stay with my head on my shoulder.
So that's very interesting. As you said that you had sort of prepared for this, and it puts you maybe in a better position than others. Obviously, as the host of this big conference, you probably have heard of other vacation rental owners or managers who are either coming to your conference or in your groups or listening to what you have to say. So, uh, th- tell us a bit maybe about what you've heard about some people. What's the situation? What are people facing right now, and what are they doing about it?
Concern is real and obviously objective. I've talked to a few property managers who are all very concerned, hosts as well, other players as well, because it's true. There are certain structures that are going to suffer a lot from what's going on right now, and unfortunately, I think that once this is over, regrettably, we'll see quite a number of players that will no longer be there in our industry, as well as in many other industries, because this is happening widespread at all levels, in all fields. So we'll really see, unfortunately, lots of casualties on the ground. I talked to a property manager who in Milan, who told me how concerned he was because of his business model and what he was doing to ease the pains and to maybe get a rescue plan in place as soon as possible. I see right now that the businesses that have a heavy cost infrastructure are those that are going to suffer most because they can't sustain long. If this is going to stay like this for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, some businesses can still cope with that, but beyond that, lots of people will go bankrupt and will have to close shop because they simply can't sustain the running costs of having businesses that are not that agile. So,
what examples maybe then of models you think are more agile or others?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, the property managers are relying more on a rent-to-rent business model are those that are going to suffer most, in my opinion, because they have a very high structure of costs. They have to, pay monthly fees, monthly rents, and you just do the numbers when you think about like a property manager's with like 50 properties at like 1,000 a month. That's already 50K a month. For 3 months, it's 150K, and when it could be a big problem for many people. So those businesses are going to suffer quite a lot, or at least more than those that have a more agile model with just commission, for example, or those businesses that don't rely on a high number of employees to whom they have to pay the salaries and all the rest. So that is quite easy to understand who's going to suffer most. Of course, there are those hybrid models where you have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Definitely, as I just said, those that have a higher cost structure will be the ones to suffer more and maybe perish. The agile, lightweight ones are those that with a good management of the resources can overcome this period in a much better shape.
And have you seen, with your global network, have you seen differences across countries maybe? Have you seen this wave coming, like first maybe on Asia and then Europe and then US? Because on my side, I kind of thought at first in forums, I was hearing people in the US not understanding, for example, what was going on, or Europeans having to cancel their trips because of travel bans. And did you notice differences across geographies, or is it more differences, as you said, maybe urban versus resort, or is touching everyone besides the model?
Well, if we talk about urban versus resorts, so definitely, then it's everyone sees that immediately that the biggest impact is urban. Urban markets are being basically destroyed versus like leisure markets. But just simply because of the number of properties in the same space, and I mean it's just a number thing. Those have been deeply impacted way more than leisure ones, even because leisure ones usually have a season that is more geared towards the summer, while urban markets normally have a near to like all year round market, so that they have been more heavily impacted. Your question is not easy to answer, the question you asked before, because it really depends on so many different factors that none of us have under control. Let's say, for example, in Italy right now, we are heavily impacted by this. We are suffering very much by this, and this is going to pay a toll. We're going to pay a toll that's going to be dramatic, way more than other countries. But that's because we are the country, the third country in the world in terms of numbers of visitors, or we are one of the top countries in the world. And the way it's been depicted as well as tragic and dramatic has really brought our country to the ground. But culturally, and I think the situation in Spain now is really dramatic. I was just checking the John Hopkins website. Probably some of you will be familiar with this website that gives every day the numbers of each country in the world, and you can see the evolution of the spread. And while a few European countries, they were sort of like a week, 10 days, 2 weeks behind us in terms of contagion, what I'm seeing is that is dramatically, some of these countries are just recovering very quickly this curve. So Spain is no longer a week or two in terms of contagion. It's much faster than Italy. And the same thing is happening in another couple of countries. So the way people will react, again, it depends on the countries, it depends on the cultures. But to simply put it in a very clean and clear and simple way, what I foresee is the following. We've seen a wave of this spread, starting from China, then Iran, Italy, then Spain, France, Germany, UK, and the US. As a wave, this also means that depending on how fast, depending on a series of criteria and things, we can't really know how fast we cope with it, how fast it's going to spread, how wide it's going to spread. But we are going to recover one by one as countries. Some will be hit more than others. Italy will be one of the hittest hardest. But then what I think is that once this is gone, the first thing, these people will start moving again, will start traveling again, but slowly. Because if you look at the nature of the human being, of all of us, when, like animals, when there's danger, what animals do, the first thing they do, they just freeze. And that's what we're doing now. Everyone's frozen because you don't know what's happening. The danger is coming. Once the danger is gone, you start moving again. But because you don't know very far away, if it's safe to go there or not, what you would do, you would move first around your area. And then as time goes by, you will start moving a little farther away and then farther away. So my prediction is that for domestic market, for example, it's going to pick up first with the domestic market. It makes sense. Italians will just go to Italy first. Also because if you think that we are out of this, let's say 2 months from now, and Spain is still in it, we won't go to Spain. We'll stay in. Same thing for Spain when they're recovered. Same thing for France, same thing for Germany and the rest. So this is going to take a while before the majority of the countries are out. It also means that the borders are closed. So we don't want the infections coming back once we're safe. And therefore, it's reasonably to think that once this is over in Italy, we may not reopen our borders because we don't want other people from outside to come here. Then the airlines, many airlines will either go bankrupt or will have issues going back to normal. So this is a thing that is really going to cause, once it's gone, a slow recovery, I would say. And therefore, we have to plan for this slow recovery, or at least have in mind that this can happen.
And it's exactly going to my last question would be, so that's a very, I think, after all you've read and you've seen, right, I think it's an interesting evolution you're depicting, right? So if this is the evolution that's going to happen, so business-wise, what should people be doing to be ready for this? Maybe is there advice you can give, or maybe advice you've read as well elsewhere that they can turn to say, okay, if this is going to happen, what should I do for my business?
Yeah. Okay, talking about property managers, what I've seen, and again, here is common sense as well, is the following. Property managers are renegotiating contracts with their hosts or with the property owners. And the way to do that, you could do it like this, for example. In the next 2-3 months, so think about 3 months ahead, you can either do one, freeze rents. So talk to the property owner or the host and ask to freeze the rent for those months. And then you start giving them back, let's say in June or July, in a quota every month to recover. The second thing you could do is if freezing is not a point, you could try to reduce rents. So let's say I'm giving you €1,000 per month. I could give you 500 per month for the next 3 months. And then I give you the rest with July, August, September, and the other months. That's another option. And these are all options to keep cash flow high enough to survive. The third option, which I have seen some property manager doing, and some of them doing it already successfully, is seeking mid-term rentals, converting to the mid-term. Okay, I'm like digital nomads or business people, or even family members who don't want to contage their elderly and therefore take another home for like a month or 2 months. Of course, you're never going to get the same amount of money you would get on a daily basis with traditional vacationers, but it's still better than nothing, and it can still pay for what you owe your property owner or host every month. So this is another option that is to take into account in accordance with property owners. And hey, let's be honest here. Those that say, yeah, but it's never going to work with my host or property owners, I doubt it's never going to work. Because if you speak openly, frankly, to your peers saying, we're all in this together, and listen carefully, if you say, yeah, right, okay, I'm just going to do this by myself. Right now, there's no business anywhere. So no one would rent anything. So it doesn't really make sense to cut a relationship, a rapport you have with your property manager simply because he's not able to pay you now. Makes lots more sense to find a middle way that in the long run, it will be a win-win for all of us. So this is the advice I could give, the 3 simple, actionable strategies to put in place for property managers.
If I just recap what we heard before go to the another topic is, which is interesting. So property manager turn towards homeowners and explain that your business has to survive. It's going to help them, and keep cash. Maybe cash that from past booking that was owed, and maybe say for 3 months not going to pay you, or going to pay you a bit, and here's the deadlines. Or say, let's try there's no demand for short-term rentals right now. Let's convert your place into a longer term. So it's very interesting how you advise on talking to homeowners on this.
Yeah, this is an advice that is not. I mean, it's coming from the web. If you're reading, like I said, I'm reading a lot. I've been reading a lot. I've been studying a lot for several weeks now, and I've seen lots of common sense ideas, good sense ideas that make sense. And we're human beings. It's the way you communicate can make the difference. And yes, some people may not accept it. There's a property manager in Milan I spoke to who actually said, I am renegotiating my rental agreements. He's doing rent to rent. So he's exactly in this category. And he said quite frankly to me, I spoke to all my property owners, all my hosts, and I told them I can't pay you now, so let's freeze these until May or June. And a few of them said no. I decided to ditch the properties and cancel the contract. And it was the best way to do, because after all, those were underperforming properties. The property owner or host was not aligned with my values and with my ethics. So in the end, it was just a matter of time until I decided to just get rid of the properties that are not worth it. So this is an opportunity in bad times like this to rethink as well your portfolio and consider which properties are really worth maintaining and which ones maybe are worth ditching.
Good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And for hosts, the same advice that can be given to property owners and hosts like myself, for example, is the one to take this time that we have as an opportunity to renovate what's possible, given your budget, of course, but to renovate some of the things that you kept on postponing for one reason or the other. And now that you have plenty of time, do this. For example, I've done a couple of maintenance works in my property next door to improve it for better times, so that when my guests come in, they will have a few new things that I added, which is going to increment the value that I am giving. The second thing is, again, seek longer term guests. Same thing as I said earlier. For example, you could rent to digital nomads, or you could change your listing on Airbnb, Booking.com, and the other sites, making it explicit that you are open to longer term. I've seen this strategy in place already online from a few property owners who said it worked very well. They were able, it may not work everywhere, but in some markets, including urbans, it could work now to cover, March, April, May, and June. And then you'll see later, based on how everything develops, how to keep going. And then another one is analyze your costs to make them more sustainable, and take time to automate processes that you've never done before, like email templates, for example. All these things that you had in the back burner for a while, now is the time to implement all of them, because paradoxically, This is a great opportunity right now to improve all that needs to be improved, to better all that needs to be better. And the last thing you can do is an email to all your future guests to ask not to cancel and postpone or reschedule their holidays.
So for that last idea, basically, is telling them reschedule another date, give them some kind of travel credit to come back, because they chose you in the past. They could still want to come back to your location and to your place. That's the idea.
Yeah, I've seen this happening already. Many people as well online are witnessing this policy that is working very well. Also, because if you think about it, we are in a state of emergency. I can definitely resonate with this because I lived it myself. As you remember, when I talked about my story about 9/11 and I was on board of that flight going to the US, those that were at the summit 2 years ago heard the story. And I can definitely resonate that. If you think about it, in such a moment of widespread emergency all over the world, we are all human. We are more human. The majority of us is more human. We see it in Italy here with solidarity, something so beautiful we've never seen before. We feel proud of being Italians, so many of us. And believe me, we Italians are a country of, let me pass this harsh, strong definition, 60 million individuals. Not like France, where you would say it's a nation. Italy is a country normally of 60 million individuals. We're always upset with our country. We always blame it on everyone else. We always complain. Everything always bad. We're never happy. But now, this emergency cast a new light on our people and our country. We have a sense of solidarity that has never been felt before. And we feel it everywhere. Even if we're confined at home, we feel it. So with that being said, when you talk to your guests and you explain with your heart the situation, they will understand. We've seen so many saying, hey, we have no intention to cancel at all. We are aware of it. We want to come to your country. We want to come to your property. So we'll reschedule or we'll plan ahead. So that is, in my opinion, one of the best things that is possible to do. And if phrased correctly, you don't have to be afraid that you'll get lots of cancellation because we have a saying in Italian that you say, when you wake up the dog that is sleeping, it starts barking. So you don't want to do that because otherwise it will start barking. You don't have to fear that because everyone now, we're on the same boat worldwide. We know it. So this is the advice that I can give.
Antonio, this is great advice, and it's also so matching your experience and so your personality in what you're seeing, right? Talking, communication with the homeowners and with the guests, as you just described, right? How important it can be if you're able to reach out to them and do this. Speaking of reaching out to now, that we come to the conclusion of this video. If people want to reach out to you or maybe connect with you or with your people, where can they go?
Oh, very easy. Well, yeah, the easiest thing to do is they can go to the Vacation Rental World Summit website, which has a chat at the bottom right of the corner where I'm normally always reachable or online, as I have my mobile with me, so they can reach me out there. And that's probably the best way to reach out to me.
That's perfect. People can chat with you straight away. I think it's pretty neat. Well, sometimes sleep, of course.
Huh?
And leave you some time to sleep, though, right? But
oh yeah. I no longer reply 24 hours a day, so I apologize in advance if I won't get back immediately, but I will get back to everyone.
Okay. Once again, thank you so much for your time. Talking about your personal experience, situation in Italy, Also sharing advice, things you've seen with other property managers, vacation rental owners, and giving advice, again, on communication, very important with homeowners and guests, and wherever you can, try to explain the situation and find an agreement. As you said, we're all in this together. So it's very important to keep that message through and try to make this happen on your side. So, yeah.
Thank you, Thibault, for inviting me here. You are a wonderful person. We've known each other for a number of years now, and it's always a pleasure to be on the same boat with wonderful people.
Well, thanks, Antonio. So all the best to your family, and we see each other very soon in person.
Yeah, you bet.
Take care.
Ciao.